Hello and welcome to this updated video guide for completing the Dancing Plague in Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker. My name's Renata Bliss and I'm your freestyle dance teacher. Titania can be pretty intense, so let's take a look. As the tank, pull the boss and face her away from the group. Keep an eye out for the Tank Buster Divination rune, as this is a large frontal conal attack. Due to this, everyone else should generally try to avoid being in front of the boss, and if you're the off tank, be a DPS for now. Another attack to look out for is Phantom Rune. This is just a large AoE, but it can come in two forms, either centered on the boss or room wide with the safe spot being close to Titania. Just move appropriately. You'll see this move a lot during the fight and often overlapping other mechanics, especially Mist Rune, which I'll explain in a second. Healers can also keep an eye out for Bright Sabbath being cast, as this is a group-wide AoE to heal up after. Now then, before long, Titania will cast Mist Rune, putting 4 water puddles in the middle of the room. These water puddles will slowly get encircled by purple ball orb things. This is just a visual timer. You need to make sure that at least one player is in each of the 4 puddles before they're fully encircled. In real terms, this means just stand in a puddle until the purple orbs go away. I don't technically know what happens if a puddle is empty when this completes, but after Mist Rune, the boss will always use Flame Rune to summon a large fist of fire above her. Shortly afterwards, a random player will get a stack up marker. Just stack up, but make sure you're standing in one of the puddles, because the water will help reduce the fire fist's damage. This becomes more important in the last phase. Talking of phases, at around 70% the boss will enter phase 2 and transform the arena into a forest. Here she'll gain 3 new abilities. Growth Rune spawns an 8-pointed star in the middle of the room. Shortly after, 8 fairly wide sets of roots will shoot out across the floor in the 8-pointed directions. Touching these will freeze you in place whilst dealing damage for a time. Try and position yourself between the points, but at a medium distance back to avoid getting grabbed. Next is Frost Rune. This is literally the same AoEs all over the map, starting with the middle mechanic that we've seen in previous fights like Shiva or Tsukiyomi. Just move out of the centre to one of the areas that got marked later in the sequence, wait for the middle AoE to go off, and then quickly move into the middle of the room. After Frost Rune, you'll usually get the third ability, Uplift. This marks 4 random players with this pink AoE indicator, so spread out to avoid overlapping hits. Eventually, we'll enter the add phase. This is where most of the wipes happen, so listen up. We have 3 adds to deal with: Puck, Peace Blossom and Mustard Seed. In addition, Titania will start charging power, making the add phase a potentially tough DPS check. Puck and Peace Blossom hit hard, so need to be tanked by separate tanks. As such, it's good to try and coordinate this with your other tank beforehand, and healers should prepare for high damage if a single tank picks them both up. Also, make sure you face both of these away from the group for good measure. Mustard Seed, on the other hand, cannot move and targets randomly, but it's also the weakest one. It does throw out the most line AoEs though, so most groups usually target it first, even though Puck deals the most damage. Ultimately, it doesn't matter hugely which order you kill them in, but definitely focus them one at a time. There's not much else worth mentioning during this part. There are line AoEs and targeted AoEs, but we know how to avoid those at this point. Once they're all down, Titania will bring them all back, but in giant form, occupying 3 of the 4 sides of the room. Tanks will still need to pick up Puck and Peas. During this part, you'll have a number of abilities to watch out for. Mustard Seed will throw even larger line AoEs covering most of the map, and Peace Blossom will continue to target random players with other AoEs. This can get a little hectic trying to spread out while finding safe areas, so expect a hit or 2 and just try your best. Puck also has a few abilities here. The first is a stack up marker, which is fun when there are a million other things to avoid, and it's also easy to not spot this happening, so do keep an eye out for it and stack up as best you can. The other ability puts a blue circle in the middle of the room, and you'll see push away arrows in all directions. When this goes off, everyone will get knocked back from the centre of the room. Do note though that this is a one-hit kill for anyone standing inside the blue circle when it lands, so don't do that. Now, the clock is still ticking, so you'll have to kill all 3 adds both times before Titania gains 100 power or she'll wipe the group. Range DPS can try and limit break 2 or possibly all 3 giant adds, but as long as no one is disconnected and all DPS stay alive, you should make it through. Lastly, a big thing to note about the giant add phase is that each add will continue to use their abilities regardless of whether or not you've killed them. As such, you might as well kill the hardest hitting Puck and Peace Blossom first to reduce tank damage. However, most groups tend to target Mustard Seed first because he does the biggest AoEs, and most people probably don't remember that killing him won't stop those AoEs. Regardless, focus them one at a time like before. With all of the adds down for the second time, we'll enter the final phase of the fight. Here we see all of the previous Titania abilities, however some have now been upgraded. Uplift, the pink targeted AoE, will now target all 8 players and usually occurs just after a Mist Rune cast. Spread out as much as you can, but immediately run back into those puddles to ensure at least one player is in each one before they finish their counter. Mist Rune puddles will still be followed by a Fire Fist stack up marker, but pay attention. If the target is not standing in a puddle for the Fire Fist, the entire forest floor will burn, dealing substantial damage over time to the group. It's not uncommon for players to stand directly in the middle here due to the stack up marker, but if you're the target, keep your bum in a puddle and let people come to you. Growth Rune, the 8-pointed roots AoE, will now target opposite corners of the room. This means you'll need to look at both markers and move yourself into a safe position. It's generally best to get as far away as possible from these to give yourself more time to maneuver. And that's basically it. Hit her with a Limmy if you've got one and push on until the fight is over. This is definitely an encounter people struggle with, as I wiped with at least 3 groups here, but spread Puck and Peace Blossom between the tanks, focus the adds down one at a time, and do your best to avoid the many AoEs and you'll get her down. And that's the Dancing Plague. If you've enjoyed the guide, then let me know, and if there are any other guides or perspectives you'd like to see, then check out my channel or feel free to ask me to create one. Thank you for watching, and good luck.